The movie begins its narrative within the confines of a bustling mobile emergency unit. Here, we encounter a dedicated woman working tirelessly to stabilize a pregnant patient in a critical condition. The urgency intensifies as they make their way to the hospital. Upon arrival, the situation takes a dire turn when the patient, post an emergency cesarean section, succumbs to a severe seizure. This tragic event leads to a gradual passing of her life. The story then shifts to the autopsy table of Dr. Rose, a character depicted with meticulous attention to detail. In her sterile and precise environment, she encounters the body of the deceased patient. Dr. Rose conducts her professional duties with a clinical detachment, photographing the body and meticulously performing an examination to ascertain the cause of death. Simultaneously, we are introduced to 𝐂𝐤, a character whose tenderness contrasts with Dr. Rose's detachment. 𝐂𝐤 is depicted caring for a newborn, who is revealed to be the child of the deceased patient. The scene then cuts back to Dr. Rose, who is immersed in her work, peering through the lens of a microscope. However, her concentration is continually disrupted by the persistent ringing of her assistant Scott's phone. This annoyance prompts a tense exchange, revealing Dr. Rose's strict professional manner and intolerance for distractions. She criticizes Scott for not silencing his phone, underscoring her demanding nature. Scott's plea to leave early for his son's school needs is met with a cold response from Dr. Rose, who suggests he should send his wife instead. Meanwhile, the narrative contrasts Rose's solitary life with 𝐂𝐤's, showing the latter's warmth as a mother. 𝐂𝐤 is seen collecting her daughter Lila from daycare, and their journey home on a bus paints a picture of her nurturing and loving character. In a stark contrast to this domestic scene, the film follows Dr. Rose to a diner. Here, she orders a Cobb salad with specific dietary restrictions, attracting the attention of a nearby man. His casual remark about her food choice sparks a brief, unusual conversation, leading to a bizarre and unexpected encounter in the restroom. Dr. Rose's actions in this scene are perplexing and somewhat alarming as she medically extracts something from the man in a clinical, emotionless manner. Returning to the solitude of her home, Dr. Rose engages in mysterious experiments using the sample obtained from the man. Concurrently, she attends to Muriel, her pet pig, adding another layer to her complex character. Soon after, the plot takes a darker turn as Dr. Rose engages in a mysterious and unsettling act. Alone and solemn, she lies on the floor, proceeding to inject herself with the biological material she had extracted earlier from the man in the diner. This moment encapsulates a pivotal and disturbing development in her character arc, hinting at a deeper, more sinister aspect of her research and intentions. Meanwhile, the film shifts focus to 𝐂𝐤, a character depicted with profound maternal warmth. One morning, she discovers that her daughter, Lila, is unwell, exhibiting signs of a mild fever. Faced with the heart-wrenching dilemma of a working mother, 𝐂𝐤 is compelled to leave her ailing daughter with a neighbor, Pauline, as her job responsibilities beckon. Lila's tearful pleas and reluctance to be separated from her mother add a layer of emotional depth to this scene. At the hospital, 𝐂𝐤 juggles her professional duties in the maternity ward with her concern for Lila. She attempts to maintain a connection with her daughter through phone calls, seeking reassurance that Pauline is providing adequate care. However, her responsibilities at work interrupt these efforts, particularly when she is urgently called to the delivery room, forcing her to hang up before speaking to Lila. The narrative then introduces a moment of heightened anxiety for 𝐂𝐤 when she accidentally drops her phone in the toilet, severing her line of communication with Lila. Upon returning home, her panic escalates when she discovers Pauline's house deserted, with ominous traces of blood in the bathroom. In a frantic state, 𝐂𝐤 learns from a note left by Pauline that Lila has been taken to the hospital, the very place where 𝐂𝐤 works. At this point, the plot intertwines the paths of Dr. Rose and 𝐂𝐤 in a harrowing manner. Dr. Rose, in the pathology lab, receives the body of a young girl in a body bag. Upon reading the medical report, she learns the tragic news. The child, Lila, has died from a bacterial condition. Meanwhile, 𝐂𝐤, unaware of her daughter's fate, waits anxiously at the hospital reception. After Pauline receives some medicine and leaves, 𝐂𝐤 ventures to the pathology lab, desperate for answers. The encounter between 𝐂𝐡𝐤 and Dr. Rose in the lab is charged with tension and sorrow. Dr. Rose informs 𝐂𝐡𝐤 that the medical examiner has already taken Lila's body, providing the examiner's contact information but noting that they are usually closed on weekends. Her interaction with 𝐂𝐡𝐤 is marked by a cold, detached professionalism, offering little comfort to the grieving mother. Overwhelmed by grief and confusion, 𝐂𝐡𝐤 retreats to the hospital's break room, where a friend finds her lying on the floor in a state of shock. In a moment of raw vulnerability, 𝐂𝐡𝐤 confesses her guilt and regret. She mentions her inability to be there for Lila in her final moments, tormented by the thought that she might have unconsciously welcomed the brief respite from her motherly duties. The plot intensifies as 𝐂𝐡𝐤, the devoted mother, observes an unusual scene in the parking garage. She sees Dr. Rose, a character shrouded in mystery, hurriedly placing a large piece of luggage into her car. At that moment, 𝐂𝐡𝐤 is preoccupied with her own turmoil and doesn't give it much thought. Returning home, 𝐂𝐡𝐤's desperation to find answers about her daughter's whereabouts leads her to attempt contacting the medical examiner's office, but to no avail. She then turns to her phone, discovering several voicemails from Pauline that shed light on Lila's worsening condition. The intensity of her situation is palpable as she grapples with the frustrating lack of information. The following Monday morning brings a new wave of hope and despair for 𝐂𝐡𝐤. She visits the county's medical examiner's office, only to be met with the shocking revelation that they do not have her daughter's body. This discovery sends her into a deeper spiral of distress and confusion. At the hospital, a significant scene unfolds as the director questions Dr. Rose about Lila's corpse. Rose's response is evasive, suggesting a cover-up by blaming disorganized record-keeping and even mentioning an incident involving the accidental cremation of a body. 𝐂𝐡𝐤's desperation peaks as she refuses to leave the hospital without speaking to Dr. Rose, the last person known to have seen Lila. But when she reaches Rose's office, she finds it empty. A chance encounter in the parking garage ensues, where 𝐂𝐡𝐤, overwhelmed with grief and confusion, attempts to confront Rose. However, Rose, maintaining her mysterious and detached persona, quickly drives away, leaving 𝐂𝐡𝐤 in a state of despair. The narrative then shifts to a more personal confrontation. 𝐂𝐡𝐤, driven by her maternal instincts, waits outside Rose's apartment and confronts her upon her return. Rose's reluctance to divulge information is momentarily interrupted by an alarm from her apartment, prompting her to hastily send 𝐂𝐡𝐤 away. But 𝐂𝐡𝐤, fueled by a mother's determination, pushes past Rose and forces her way into the apartment. The sight that greets her is nothing short of shocking. Lila, alive but connected to an array of IVs and medical equipment. In this emotionally charged scene, 𝐂𝐡𝐤 demands answers from Rose, who tries to justify her actions by explaining the necessity of her experimental treatment to save Lila. Rose reveals that her research isn't a matter of supernatural resurrection, but grounded in scientific methods. She refers to her pet pig, which she had successfully brought back to life using her developed serum, further illustrating the groundbreaking nature of her work. As 𝐂𝐡𝐤 grapples with the reality of the situation, she decides to stay at Rose's apartment to assist in caring for Lila. Meanwhile, Rose undergoes an ultrasound at a clinic, confirming the healthy development of a baby inside her womb. The film then illustrates the practical arrangement between Rose and 𝐂𝐡𝐤 as they alternate shifts to ensure one of them is always present to care for Lila. The narrative takes a darker turn when 𝐂𝐡𝐤 begins to steal hospital supplies on Rose's instructions, hinting at the ethical compromises she's willing to make for her daughter's sake. Back at home, Rose undergoes a harrowing self-induced procedure to extract the fetus for her experiments, showcasing the extreme lengths she's willing to go for her research. Eventually, a breakthrough occurs when Lila begins breathing independently, though she remains unconscious. This moment of hope is tinged with complexity as Rose shares her backstory, revealing her lifelong fascination with regeneration, dating back to her childhood experiments with a starfish. Despite the growing bond between 𝐂𝐡𝐤 and Rose, the latter remains distant and somewhat awkward, maintaining an air of mystery. The scene then shifts back to the hospital, where Rose's physical condition deteriorates due to complications from her self-induced procedure. Her collapse and subsequent hospitalization create a critical point in the plot, as she is now unable to continue administering the serum to Layla and Muriel. Unaware of Rose's condition, 𝐂𝐤 faces her own pivotal moment when she discovers that Layla has regained consciousness. The narrative takes a dramatic turn as Dr. Rose awakens in a hospital bed, only to discover that her uterus has been removed due to an infection. This revelation hits her hard, as it directly impacts her ongoing secretive research. Undeterred and driven by a sense of urgency, she leaves the hospital and rushes home. There, she is confronted with another critical situation. Layla, 𝐂𝐤's daughter, has awoken, but the serum that has been sustaining her has expired. In her weakened state, Rose is barely able to communicate to 𝐂𝐤 the gravity of Layla being awake before collapsing from exhaustion. When she regains consciousness, her first concern is the data regarding Layla's awakening, indicating that they urgently need more of the serum to maintain Layla's life. However, the reality that the serum is derived from fetal tissue and Rose's inability to produce more due to her recent surgery presents a dire predicament. It's revealed that the serum was created using the fetus Rose had extracted from herself, adding a layer of ethical complexity to the situation. Desperate for a solution and aware that Layla's specific DNA markers limit their options, Rose initially dismisses 𝐂𝐤's suggestions. Yet, she soon has an epiphany and abruptly leaves, later returning with a potential, although controversial, plan. In an emotional scene, Rose interrupts 𝐂𝐤 and Layla's moment in front of the TV, only to notice Layla's attachment to the program. She informs 𝐂𝐤 that she has identified a match for Layla, a pregnant woman named Emily Parker, who is in her second trimester. Rose's plan involves manipulating Emily's hospital records to require an amniotic test, during which they can clandestinely extract amniotic fluid to create more serum for Layla. Despite 𝐂𝐤's initial moral objections, Rose convinces her that the procedure is harmless to both Emily and the fetus and crucial for Layla's survival. Reluctantly, 𝐂𝐤 agrees and assists in the procedure, stealing the needed fluid. Upon returning home, 𝐂𝐤 witnesses Rose conducting motor skill tests on Layla. In a distressing turn, Layla shows a preference for Rose over her own mother. They also discover that the stolen fluid will only suffice for a few weeks, prompting Rose to consider repeatedly altering Emily's results to obtain more amniotic fluid, a plan that deeply troubles 𝐂𝐤. The situation escalates when they find Muriel, Rose's pet pig, sick due to a missed serum dose, highlighting the potential risk to Layla. This realization forces 𝐂𝐤 to confront the ethical boundaries she's crossing to save her daughter. As Layla begins to show progress, 𝐂𝐤's resolve strengthens, despite the moral quandaries she faces. However, the situation with Emily becomes complicated when she plans to give birth in a different hospital, leaving Rose frustrated and 𝐂𝐤 in a moral dilemma. The tension between Rose and 𝐂𝐤 peaks during a heated argument, with 𝐂𝐤 accusing Rose of unethical practices, including experimenting on her own mother. Rose, in turn, insists she's doing everything to keep Layla alive, a harsh truth that silences 𝐂𝐤 as she relies on Rose's expertise to save her daughter. A shocking development occurs when Layla, displaying increased mobility, attacks Muriel. This incident leads to a difficult decision to restrain Layla, reflecting the unpredictable and dangerous side effects of the experimental treatment. In a desperate attempt to continue her research, Rose turns to 𝐂𝐤 for bone marrow, pushing the boundaries of their alliance and the ethical limits of her scientific endeavors. This decision underscores the escalating stakes and the lengths both women are willing to go to in their quest to save Layla. The narrative reaches a critical point as Dr. Rose and 𝐂𝐤 face mounting challenges in their efforts to treat Layla. Despite their relentless attempts, they encounter a significant setback. The serum derived from bone marrow proves less effective than the original. This leads to a heartbreaking deterioration in Layla's condition, with her motor functions declining and her overall health weakening. Rose, driven by her scientific resolve, tries every possible solution, but none yield the success they desperately need. Amidst this struggle, 𝐂𝐤 clings to hope, suggesting they continue their search for a suitable match. However, Rose's response indicates a grim acceptance of their situation, urging 𝐂𝐤 to cherish her remaining time with Layla. This shift in Rose's manner suggests a resignation to the possibility of losing Lila, an emotional moment that underscores the gravity of their predicament. Rose's dedication to saving Lila begins to take a toll on her professional life. She starts making errors at work, and when confronted by the hospital director, she attributes these to personal issues, a vague explanation that hints at the immense burden she carries. The situation takes a more desperate turn when Lila's heart stops beating. 𝐂𝐿, refusing to give up, acts swiftly, placing Lila's body in the freezer to preserve it, a testament to her unwavering determination to save her daughter. In a moment of extreme desperation, 𝐂𝐿 visits Emily Parker's house under the guise of delivering medical records. There, she takes a dark and decisive step, secretly administering a substance into Emily's tea that induces a seizure. This act, driven by 𝐂𝐿's maternal instinct to save Lila at any cost, leads to Emily being rushed to the hospital. The film then reveals a shocking twist. The pregnant woman in the mobile emergency unit at the beginning of the movie is Emily, and it is 𝐂𝐿 who is frantically trying to stabilize her. The doctors manage to save Emily's baby through a premature delivery, but tragically, Emily suffers another seizure and passes away. Her body is taken to the pathology lab where Rose seizes the opportunity to harvest Emily's placenta to create more serum. Back at Rose's apartment, the atmosphere is heavy with moral ambiguity and grief. 𝐂𝐿, sitting in darkness, confronts the consequences of her actions. She admits to Rose that she never intended to cause Emily's death, only to induce labor for the placenta. Rose, absorbed in her scientific pursuit, dismisses the moral implications, focusing instead on producing the new serum. The climax of the film is both dramatic and ethically complex. Rose and 𝐂𝐿 work tirelessly to reanimate Lila, and their efforts are eventually successful. The resurrection of Lila is a moment of triumph tinged with moral uncertainty as 𝐂𝐿 welcomes her back to life. This scene encapsulates the film's central theme, the lengths to which they are willing to go to birth or rebirth Lila. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.